wie die unsere Ahornstraße runterfuhren und mit den Panzern da runterfuhren, auch mit Jeeps. Und da standen ja auch schon Kinder an den Straßen und denen warfen sie auch schon mal ein Kaugummi, ich weiß nicht, was es war, oder vielleicht auch Schokolade. Und an diesen Reaktionen konnte man dann ja auch schon merken, dass es dann wohl nicht ganz so schlimm sein wird.
A short reprieve from the war, a glimpse of peace. And for the liberated, their first taste of the American way of life. In the week after the capture of the Remagen Bridge, 25,000 US troops crossed the Rhine. For the persecuted in Hitler's Germany, they meant
Hoffnung. Das war die Frage, ob sie noch zeitig kommen. Und sie kamen ja da eben durch diese Geschichte mit der Brücke früher als erwartet, rüber hinter unserem Haus ging die Autobahn. Und da kamen wir, da hörten wir die, wie sie kamen. Und darum ist mein Vater dem ja entgegengegangen.
Afraid of being arrested, the Grütters family from Büderich near Cologne had moved to the village of Nintershausen near Limburg. Classified under the Nazi racial laws as a half-Jew, Veronica's father had lived for years with the fear of being deported.
Ich habe aus dem Fenster geguckt und mein Vater ging dem ersten Offizier entgegen. Und er kam natürlich mit Angst ins Dorf, weil er nicht wusste, was die da erwartete. Und mein Vater ging ihm entgegen und hätte ihn am liebsten umarmt und abgeküsst. Das war die Befreiung, hat er ja ersehnt, dass sie noch rechtzeitig käme. Und der Offizier aber hatte Angst und nahm seine Pistole und hielt sie meinem Vater minutenlang vor die Brust. Und ganz langsam senkte dann der Offizier der Armee, wir sagten die Amis, seine Pistole. Und dann haben sie sich verständigt.
Meanwhile, Field Marshal Montgomery was preparing the main assault into the Reich on the lower Rhine near Wesel. He wanted to send over 1 million men across the Rhine. To camouflage the preparations, a smokescreen was laid along the west bank. Under cover of this giant cloud of oil and water, men and equipment were moved up to the Rhine. But despite their superiority, many Allied troops remained skeptical.
I thought that there was going to be a lot of resistance. I thought that this was the ideal place for them to throw us back into the Rhine and to ensure that we couldn't get a crossing. But, as you say, the fall of the Rhine-Magen Bridge might have had a considerable effect from the enemy point of view, because it wouldn't be so vital for them to throw us back.
The 23rd of March 1945. Over 1 million men were ready to land the decisive blow. Each hour was 5 p.m. With a barrage from over 1,300 guns, the major offensive on the Rhine began. The German defenses on the other bank were to be blasted into submission. 4 hours later, men of the 51st Highland Division were the first to cross. They wanted to catch up with the American troops near Remagen. And they met with little resistance. The British, Americans and Canadians realized what this day meant. In the drive for Berlin, the Rhine was the last major obstacle in the West.
There was a terrific feeling of competition, and that we had to get over the Rhine, and that somebody was going to report back before anyone else that they'd taken their objectives on the other side.
To support his ground troops, Montgomery organized the biggest airborne operation of the Second World War. On the morning of the 24th, 2 divisions of paratroopers left England and France. Their mission was to break resistance in the rear of the German front and help the ground forces make a rapid breakthrough.
He was told that this operation was based on mistakes made on D-Day, which was the night drop, and Arnhem, where they dropped the troops too far from the objective, which gave the enemy that much time to prepare for defences.
This time it was going to be different. The British and American paratroopers were to be dropped into the operational area in daylight, directly above the enemy. Charles Harding's battalion was the first to jump. It landed in a field near Bergerfurt at 9:51. In the nearby woods, a company of the German 7th Parachute Regiment was dug in. There was bitter fighting, hand to hand. Harding and his fellow paras stormed the woods.
The men were angry, having lost a well-respected company commander and the platoon commander, and I'm afraid there wasn't very many prisoners. I'm sorry to say this, funny.
There are no known German survivors. 25 of the German paratroopers are still officially missing in action. The British also suffered heavy losses.
At the end of that wonderful March, sunny day, by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, our division had lost 1,500 chaps, killed or wounded. Very few were missing because you couldn't miss much.
11 a.m. 1 hour after the first paratroopers landed, a second wave approached. 1,300 assault gliders brought supplies, soldiers, and equipment to the front. The final approach was risky. The slow-moving gliders were an easy target for German anti-aircraft guns. Many pilots preferred to risk a nosedive and crash land. With the reinforcement came medical orderlies. They tended the wounded of both sides. The brutal face of war had become part of everyday life. Brigadier James Hill, commander of the British 3rd Parachute Brigade, often thought of his mother's words.
My mother, in 1939, when I went to the war, sent for me, and she was a very good and spiritual lady, the wife of a distinguished soldier. And she said, "Now, darling, if you survive this war, you've got to learn to harden your heart." And of course that's what you had to do. You had to get used to seeing all these things.
Churchill had anticipated that the battle for the Rhine would be far more difficult. The day after the operation, he made the crossing himself. The German defences near Wesel had been smashed. He remarked to Eisenhower, "My dear General, the German is whipped. We've got him. He is all through."